Welcome to the Gen Con Spring Showcase. I am Sara Erickson, and I am the Vice President here at Renegade Game Studios. And I'm very excited to share with you everything we have coming up for the spring. And it's a lot of games. We spent a lot of time in the last year, instead of traveling to amazing events like Gen Con, we spent hunkered down working on awesome games so that we would have something to share with everyone that you can enjoy while you're at home. So we're really excited to be able to share all this with you, and I can't wait to tell you all about all the stuff we've been working on. So we have a few different categories of games, both RPGs, board games, card games, and we even started doing puzzles this year. So I'm going to go through each different category and share with you some of the most exciting things about each one of our games. And at any time, if you have questions, please post those in chat. We will be watching that. We're really, really happy that we get to share this with all of the Gen Con fans. So if you're there on Gen Con's Twitch, please let us know. Or if you're in Discord too, we want to hear from you. If you have questions about the games I'm chatting about, we have some really good spoilers in here for you today. So please let us know what you're excited about. Let us know if you have questions, and I will get to as many of those as I can at the end of this show. So we're going to jump right into it. Renegade Game Studios, we've been around for a while, and the thing we started doing at the very beginning, about 6.5 years ago, was board games. And we really started out with a lot of family board games, and we have continued making great games that you can play at home with your family, whether they're hardcore gamers or whether they're just casually into hanging out with you and spending some time around your beautiful table. We have games for you. And so we're continuing that and adding on to it. We now have lots of even bigger games, lots of games that people who play RPGs might enjoy, and everything in between. But one of these games I want to share with you first is one that definitely fits into the family game category. So I want to chat with you just a little bit about this game called Astral. Now, I don't know about you, but when I heard this name first, I said, I read a lot, I know a lot about science, and I have no idea what this word means. So I was informed that this actually means sort of that it's underneath the stars. So astral. And this is a game all about the biomes on our planet. So this is about where we live, all the different cool areas, whether you're in the forest, whether you're on the desert or the plains, and all sorts of science that goes with those. If you enjoyed Stellar, this is another small box card game, and this one is also going to include a ton of beautiful science facts. And if you enjoy, while you're playing a game, reading about what that cool area is that you're trying to gain points on, if you think that that's really neat, this is an awesome game for you. I really enjoyed that in Stellar, and we wanted to continue this. This is by the same designers that made Stellar, so if you really enjoy that thinky, puzzly kind of challenging game where there aren't a lot of rules, but it's really elegant strategic gameplay, that's what this game is all about. With Stellar, it was a 2-player only game, which was awesome because a lot of people only had one other person they could play with, but we're opening up a little bit more, and maybe you have a few other people to play with, or maybe your entire family's into games now. This, you can play with even more people now. So this is not just a 2-player game. This actually goes all the way up to 5 players. And it's quick. You're going to learn this game, be able to play it in 20 to 40 minutes, and you're going to be learning about all these wonderful, cool things on Earth, diving deep into the diversity and the deep, very cool things that you're going to learn in this game. As far as a game goes, it's really interesting hand management, really unique set collection, but again, not rules heavy, strategy heavy. And this is coming out in June, so we don't have to wait too much longer. It's already up for pre-order if that's something that strikes your fancy, but you can find it at your friendly local retail stores in just a couple months. The next game I want to share with you is another small box card game, and this one is called Duel of Wands, a Kids on Brooms card game. So a little bit of backstory. Kids on Bikes came out as an RPG quite a long time ago. And that game is a really world-building, open adventure type game where you are a group of kids who has a very, very powerful supernatural friend, and all of you go out on your bikes and ride around in the neighborhood, and you go on mystery adventures. And it's really up to you and your party to direct yourselves, figure out what that story is going to be, look for cool mysteries, and do what makes sense for your party, because it's an RPG, very open. Again, not very rules heavy. So we found that people really enjoyed that. It's cool to imagine going back to a time and place where we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet. Your mom just kicked you out the back door at the beginning of the day and you had to come home before dinner, and those are the only rules. And that's a really neat setting to tell stories in. But people thought that that was really neat and still wanted to do a little bit more with it. So we created this system called Kids on Brooms. Basically the same system as Kids on Bikes. Again, very easy, great for people getting into RPGs. But now you've got broomsticks. Obviously, you're in a wizarding type school. You want to become a sorceress. You want to play with magic. That's a game for you. And there's lots of cool stories that you can tell in that setting as well. And now you have rules to do that with things like you get special rules for what your wand is made out of. Depending on the type of wood that it is, it does special things. It's such a cool, inviting fantasy world to play around in. And one thing about it is that you often find yourself in this game having a duel against another wizard. And so we made a card game that goes with Kids on Brooms that you can play either on your own or you can play as part of the RPG. If you're enjoying this RPG and then you have this really cool event happen and you want to say, stop, let's see how this plays out. You have the two players do a heads up duel, 1v1, see who wins, and that can influence the rest of your story. I think that's really cool. But if you also just want to play this on your table without any of the Kids on Brooms story attached to it, you can do that as well. It's just very thematic, very great way that you're playing against each other. And again, it's only a 1v1 two-player only game, which are great to have around the table. We have done very well with things like Fox in the Forest. That's a two-player only game because it's easy to pull out and just play with that one other special person that you play a lot of games with. So we can't wait for this one to come out. It's coming out very soon. We are just getting our media copies of this next week, which means you should be seeing a lot more reviewer copies, reviewer videos, things like that coming out very soon. So if you want to know more about this game, keep an eye out. You can always find out more things about all of our upcoming games if you're part of our Renegade newsletter, and you can just go to renegadegames.com to sign up for that. So keep an eye out for that one. If you love this world, if you think it's really cool, the idea of kids on bikes, kids on brooms, that whole RPG setting, but you're not somebody who plays RPGs, we have another game for you. This one is actually on pre-order right now, and it is called The Gaster Situation, a Kids on Bikes board game. We had a lot of people tell us, I love this setting, but it's too much for me to sit around and create this whole world and all these things in it. I just want some rules and to play a game in this awesome setting with Heather Vaughn's beautiful artwork. So make us a board game, please. And we decided that that was an awesome idea. It's a fun mystery setting. And so this is actually up and available for pre-order through our web store right now. Just look for The Gaster Situation. Trust me, you won't find many other games called that. And the reason it's named that is because you're a bunch of kids fighting against scary monsters. And not just one monster, there's a ton of replayability in this game. There's actually 4 different monsters, and each one of them works very differently. But no matter which monster you're fighting, there are a bunch of puzzles that you all have to solve as the group of kids trying to battle this monster. And you have to collect different pieces from around the board. The whole board is a grid that shows the whole city that you're in. And you have to find all the different pieces, depending on what type of monster you're fighting, and put those all together to be able to win against the monster. But you have a little bit of help. So one of the players in your party is actually that powered character that I mentioned before. So they have a little bit of supernatural power. They're not just a regular kid from around the block. And they are able to give you information about the monster and about where they are at, because they're hiding. They're in this big battle against a monster. They don't want to be caught by the monster, and they want to have you and the rest of your friends come and find them where they're at so that you can all battle together. And that player is actually one of the people sitting around the table gets to control that powered character, the lost kid, and also incidentally is in charge of the monster. So every card that they play that gives you a clue about where they are also moves that monster, and the monster is going to move towards the children depending on what cards are played. So I've played a lot of games where one of the players will play a card that has subtle clues on it, and the rest of the party has to decide, what do those clues really mean? Does that mean that we should be looking for a house with flowers on it? Does it mean that they're on Chestnut Street? And you have to decide, depending on all of the clues they've given you, what you think they're trying to tell you about where they are, knowing that those cards also will move the monster. It's a super cool mechanic. I've seen things sort of like it before. It felt a little bit familiar, but really interesting new way to use it. And the artwork in this game is gorgeous. Everything about it is just very nostalgic. And if you pre-order it now, you get a free special bonus pack. And this promo pack is filled with 80s and 90s nostalgia. I personally love the Sparkle Pony. I really, really want to play with that as my ride. Each different kid gets a different ride that they use to move around the board that has different powers. For example, you might have a power that allows you to jump over fences because you have the skateboard. That's super powerful because then you can go wherever you want on the board instead of having to run around people's backyards. And each one of these promo in the promo pack are different rides that give you different abilities as well. So don't miss those. Also, I totally had those roller skates when I was a kid. So check this out. Coming out this summer. It also has free shipping for anyone in the US, only if you pre-order it now, and you'll get that special promo pack. So if you love kids on bikes, you love 80s and 90s nostalgia, you love mystery solving games, cooperative nature, puzzle solving, this is the game for you. So awesome. Speaking of historical games, which is scary that the 80s are historical now, we have another really great game that we put out on Kickstarter a few months ago that is now finally coming to friendly local game stores in your area. And this is Embarcadero. Again, if you like history, if you're interested at all in 1850s gold rush era California or any of the cool history that surrounds that, this game is awesome. I love Euro games, but one thing that's a complaint about Euro games often is they're not very thematic. This one was actually built the other way around. So the designers of this game knew the story of the Embarcadero, which is this really interesting shipyard. It's this area of San Francisco where ships would come into harbor because they wanted to be part of the gold rush. So people would get on these ships, they would come to San Francisco, and then they would just abandon them. They were so excited to go out and run into the hills and find that gold and become rich that leaving their boat in the dock just wasn't relevant. They just left. And so this whole harbor was just filled with what they called ghost ships that were completely abandoned. And instead of the city destroying them or trying to figure out how to deal with that, they allowed businesses to just start growing on these ships. And then they started filling in land around them, which eventually grew extra land for the city of San Francisco, which, as you probably know, is a very difficult place to build on because of the hills. So adding this extra land in the harbor, utilizing these recycled ships was really ahead of their time. This is something that I can imagine happening now. And this game was built around that awesome history lesson. And the way that the game works is 100% influenced by that, every little tiny part of it. So what you're doing in the game is actually building businesses and game resources by putting these three-dimensional cubes on top of ship tiles. And the way that they're connected gets you points, what they're next to gets you points. And the hand and card management in this game is really interesting. You're only able to use the cards that you have in your hand, but every turn you have to get some of those cards sent to the next round, and then you can use them. So if you start out with cards that you know are going to be great in round 3 and are not great in round 1, you just keep passing those to the next round and eventually they'll come back to you. It's a really cool way of doing it. It takes lots of forward planning. If you love games where you want to see the whole theme get interconnected, lots of little parts that come together in a really elegant way, that's Embarcadero. So it's got the whole package for me. It's got a super cool theme. It's got amazing gameplay. And this is a game that I'm going to put on my table and play over and over again because it has different character powers. It's got different ships that you're going to see, different businesses that come out. And it's not going to be the same game every time you play, but it allows you to optimize what you have, which I really, really enjoy in Euro games. So do not let this one pass you by. Go watch some reviews, see what you think about it. Look at the beautiful artwork inside this game. It's super cool, and I love the history around it. Speaking of history, we have another game. We're all about history this week. So we have another game coming out very soon that is based around this landmark. So in the UK, there's this place called Hadrians Wall, which was this, think of it as like a fortress wall. Keep people on one side or the other. And you are building that up and keeping your town and city and all the citizens that live inside that safe so you can build your civilization. I've always been really fascinated by roll and write games, but I've wanted them to be a little bit more, and this game finally did it. There have been some other really great roll and write games that are getting close and being a little bit more complicated and taking some really interesting Euro mechanics and adding them in. This one, though, it's not quite a roll and write. It's actually a flip and write. So you flip a card and get the resources for the turn. And that, to me, balances everything out. So it takes away a little bit of that randomness. It makes sure it's balanced, but it still gives you this huge board that's actually just paper that you're scribbling on, that you're marking stuff off on, that you're making combos with. And the whole game is so enjoyable. There are not a lot of games I play twice when I put them on the table right in a row. This game I played twice immediately. We played it, loved it, said, oh, I wish I could have done all these other things. I wanted to try this different strategy. There's all these different ways to play this. Let's just play it again right now. And we actually did that. And if I'd had time and didn't need to go to sleep, I would have played it a third time because this game is great. And it allows you to choose so many different strategies. And the comboiness of it is what really hooked me. If you like games where you do this thing over here, and then you do another thing, and it gives you resources that you can do to do this other thing, that's what this game is. And again, I've loved all of the games in the Garfield Games line. You maybe have enjoyed Raiders of Scythia, Raiders of the North Sea, Architects of the West Kingdom, tons and tons of games that come out of this one little design studio that we work with. And this is their latest one. So we're really excited. This is coming out very soon. It just landed and is sort of working its way through the shipping system, which is a disaster right now, but we don't need to worry about that. It's coming. And so we'll get to this one very soon. I'm guessing April, but don't hold me to that quite yet. We're getting close. So make sure, again, your friendly local game store should have this. There's no extra fancy promos you're missing out on, anything like that. Wherever you can find it, it'll be the same deal everywhere. And this is an awesome, awesome game. So check that one out. Okay, we're not done with history yet. I know this feels like you're in class. This is a whole history lesson, but I have one last one I really, really want to share with you. So recently we announced that we were refreshing the World's Fair. So this is all about the World's Fair in 1893, which was this huge, amazing exposition of cool technology and discovery and all sorts of things that were happening all over the world. And all of these people descended on Chicago for a really, really long, like more than a year-long event of all this cool stuff happening where they learned about these things, they collected new ideas, they shared their thoughts. It was a huge, huge event. And so this game by J. Alex Cavern really allows you to experience that while moving around this beautiful Ferris wheel, which was the big creation that drew people to this event. That was the thing that the event organizers wanted to make it symbolic for this particular one, because the World's Fair happens every few years, but this one in 1893 is where the Ferris wheel was created. So one of the things, we put this game out many years ago and it was great. People loved it. We had lots of projects going on. We ran out of copies and we felt like we weren't quite ready to reprint it. And so we put it in the Renegade Vault and said, we've got other things we're working on right now, but we know we're going to come back to this. So let's just let it sit there for a little bit. While it was sitting there, it came to our attention that we had kind of missed the mark a little bit. We had these really cool influential figures in this game that were people who were really important to the fair, who did really cool things there, who made it happen. But we didn't really do a good job of showing how much diversity there was in the people who were influential in the fair. So we've rectified that by adding some really cool influential characters, including Frederick Douglass, Susan B. Anthony, and a whole bunch of other characters as well who were really important at the time. And they don't change the game mechanically. We just change the number of the other influential figures, but mechanically, everything stays exactly the same. Just a little bit more added history to make up for something that we missed before. So this is available exclusively on Amazon. They partnered with us just to make sure that we could actually make this game happen. Without them, this would honestly still be sitting in the vault. So we're really happy for their partnership. And that's the only place you can currently get this, but they're fast and you know how it works. So if you go and check it out on our page, there's a link there to the Amazon page, but I have full faith that you can find it yourself if you're looking for it on Amazon too. So that one is available now. And yeah, really excited about that. So moving on, no more history, at least for now, I promise, for a little while. So this next game I want to share with you is one that we are working on with one of our great partners. We've done several games with this wonderful company called Oni Press. If you love graphic novels, if you love great stories, if you love anything that's just fun and beautiful, Oni Press is the company that makes it. And so they have this awesome graphic novel you may have heard of called Scott Pilgrim. And this character is very identifiable, and especially his main storyline of being in love with this girl who has 7 evil exes. In this big box miniatures game, you actually get to play as either Scott Pilgrim and all of his friends, or as the bad guys, starring Matthew Patel in the first of the 7 Evil X fights, and you get to battle against each other. Either side, you get to pick. And the way this game works that's really cool is that it's a 3D pop-up board, and all of the characters are 3D painted miniatures. They're gorgeous. If you just love characters from this universe, you're going to love the way these look. And you get a battle around on this 3D pop-up board. When I say 3D pop-up board, what I mean is it comes flat and then you pop it up and it makes a stage, and it has all of these 3D things that you put on it, like mic stands and bar tables and drum sets. And those items that you put on the board, your characters can actually interact with them, throw them at other characters, and it will matter in this grid battle game. And it's just very silly. And the dice that you're rolling, you get big piles of dice, you match them up with different abilities that you have. Each character is very unique and they're going to work in totally different ways. You use different dice for different characters, and it's just an all-out brawl. If you love brawling games and you're at all interested in Scott Pilgrim, this one does a great job of really feeling like you're in that movie, in that graphic novel. Super fun game, looks beautiful, and designed by Erica, who is an awesome designer. Go type in her name because I can't pronounce it very well and find her awesome stuff, and you'll enjoy all of her games. And this is coming out in April. It actually just landed in our warehouse as well, so we know that's on the way. If you're a little intimidated by all of that gameplay, you shouldn't be, because you're watching Gen Con TV. We know that you're gamers. But if you also just want all of the other characters in the universe, we also have a beautiful window box display of the collector set of all 24 miniatures in this entire game with all the expansions and all that. This windowed box display is just the miniatures. So if you missed out on the Kickstarter, this is another way you can get all of those. Make dioramas, set them up in your beautiful display cases, however you want to do it, or just open this up. It has a beautiful, when you open it up, it opens like a book, and it's got the comic book background with all the characters inside in there. It's a really pretty box and very, very limited. We're not reprinting this one, as far as I know. I should take that back. I'm pretty sure we're not reprinting this one. It is very limited edition. So there you go. Maybe if you all run to our web store and order it really, really fast, maybe we would get some more, but I think this is it for this one. So here's another one that, speaking of spoilers, I have been able to share a little bit more information about. This next game was actually on Man vs. Meeple's most anticipated list for this upcoming year, and we haven't shared a whole lot about this. So we spoiled it just a little bit at our most recent virtual event, but we haven't talked a ton about it, and we're going to be ramping that up. As you may have noticed from the other things I talked about, I love Euro games, but only if they're actually good. I like ones that are unique. I love worker placement games. I like being able to do lots of stuff with all those resources and all that coolness that I'm collecting. And My Father's Work does all that, but it's also a campaign game. And if there's one thing I love even more than Euro games, it's campaign games. I have played every single campaign game I could get my hands on because I love the story. I love the cooperativeness. I love sitting around a table with my friends and being excited for that next session where we can play the game and get more of that story and not have to learn a new rule book. And My Father's Work, it does all of that in a way that is just unfathomable. So a little tiny story about this. When Scott Gata and I, Scott Gata, president of Renegade Game Studios, when we went to Unpub many, many years ago looking for new games for this little fledgling company, Renegade, we sat down at this table with this wonderful designer named TC Patty III. And he said, "Are you from a company that might publish games? Don't bother. This game is not publishable. It's too big. It's got too much stuff. You would have to do a really complicated app with it. I can't imagine that you're interested. I'm just playtesting for my own fun. Go away." And that is always the best way to get Scott Gata's attention. So we sat down and played this. And again, it's a worker placement Euro game, so I had to play it. So we sat down and played this, and he was not wrong. This is an ambitious game. And let me explain a little bit about how this works. In this game, you have a family of characters, and you are a descendant of this mad scientist. You are trying to create this amazing, weird scientific creation. Everybody at the table is making different ones. So for example, I was trying to make a spider chariot. Spider chariot sounds awesome, but my resources, I didn't have enough stuff to build it. And so I have to send my workers to town, to different spots on my own worker placement board. I send all these different people to different places, collect resources, and then get better at things so that I can get closer to building my spider chariot. But I also have to make choices. During the game, every once in a while, you'll get handed a device that will be an iPad, tablet, whatever it is, and it'll ask you, do you want to make this decision? Do you want to go this way or this way? Do you want to steal from this person or give to the poor or make it easier for this thing to happen in society or vote against this mayor? You make all these decisions either individually or sometimes as a group, and those decisions will influence the spaces that you have available on the board to go get resources. They'll influence how angry the city is at you for being the scary scientist on the castle. And all of these decisions, as you're going through the story, take you down completely different branching paths. So it is so ambitious because every other campaign game that I've played, you are playing on rails, or you're playing in a randomized environment where you're generally playing sort of a story, but you get sent on random storylines, random side adventures that don't have anything to do with what you're actually trying to do, or just give you a little piece of something and then you move on. This is nothing like this. This is literally an enormous flowchart of story. And every decision that every person around the table makes, even though it's competitive, will take you down literally a different story path that is completely unique from all the other ones. So I cannot get across how many hours of gameplay this could be, how many different stories there are to explore, how much game this is, but also how enjoyable the actual gameplay that you're doing during that time is. It's amazing to me that this game is actually coming out, and I can't wait to put it on Kickstarter. So that doesn't even scratch the surface of what this game is. That's just the very, very beginning. Please pay attention to this campaign. It's really, really exciting for us. and I want to share it with all of you. So again, follow us on renegadegames.com, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media, watch this game, because again, if you're here at Gen Con, you probably like games, you probably like stories, you like being, you like finding the new hotness. This is all of those things. So pay attention to this one. Man vs. Meeple thought it was their #1 most anticipated game of this year after they'd seen a lot about it. So I'm hoping that we can live up to their expectations. All right, I have another game I am sure will live up to your expectations. This is a huge spoiler. I am really excited that I got permission to share anything about this. So I don't have a lot of details for you. Watch out next week for our big announcement. But today, I get to tell you about one thing that we are very excited to share. But first, a tiny little story. So several years ago at Gen Con, we showed up with our tiny, tiny little booth with this game called Clank. And Scott Gata had said, before I even started working there, we've done lots of deck builders. We don't need to make any more deck builders. That thing's over. People don't care about that anymore. And, you know, we just need to do totally unique things, and we don't need to do anything like that ever again. And then he played Clank. And Clank is so unique and so different from every other deck builder that we had ever played. We had to make this thing, even though he had to bite his tongue and say, okay, just kidding, we are going to make a deck building game, but it's going to be the best deck building game out there. And so we came out with it at Gen Con. And that year we immediately sold out, to the point where I had not even met the person who was the owner of Direwolf Digital, who's our partner on all of the Clank titles. And so when he came up to the booth to get his copy, I told him no, because we didn't have enough left and had to bite my tongue. And so, yeah, it was a big hit immediately, right off the bat. And then the next year, we just put out a few little spoilers that we were going to spill some big beans. And at that Gen Con, we released Clank in Space. And Clank in Space was such a huge hit that Gen Con, I love you guys, but they actually had to tell us to shut down our booth until we could get our line in control, because we had so many people who were so excited to find that game that it was getting a little rowdy. So we got our line under control with Gen Con's help. Thank you very much. And we were able to get those games out to many excited fans to see the next big thing in Clank. So today, to celebrate how much we love working with Gen Con and how much we love Clank and how we have such a great history with both, we are announcing our next Clank expansion. So, Clank in Space needed a little upgrade, needed even more fun content. It's such a great expansion, or such a great base game already. Clank in Space Adventures Pulse Arcade is the next one coming out, and this will be out in July. And $20 expansion, all of the things that you would expect from a Clank game. This just gives you extra stuff to play with Clank in Space, and you can take what you will from this image and from Pulse Arcade as the name, and we will tell you more about next week. But we're excited to be able to share this with our friends and partners over at Direwolf Digital to bring this to your tabletops in July. So since we're already in space, sorry, I don't have much more to tell you about that one, but we have another game from our vault that we decided to pull out of the vault and upgrade. So our second one this year, and this is Gravwell 2nd Edition. Gravwell is a game that started at the very beginning of Renegade. We've had this in our catalog the entire time that Renegade has been Renegade, but it's just been awesome, honestly. Like, we've sold tons of copies of this. It continues to be a really strong seller for us, and we thought it deserved a little upgrade. It's been around for a long time, and we had great new ideas from the designer Corey Young, and he wanted to add extra ship powers. He wanted to add more players. There's cool new rules that deal with up to 6 players now. And so we thought, yes, let's do this. Let's add all this extra stuff, but we have to make it look like a 2nd edition. We have to bring it into the modern era. So we called up our friend Kwanchai Moria, who is one of both the best artists in our industry and the most wonderful people in our industry. And he agreed to do not only the cover art, but also new interior art for us. And we could not be happier with the way that this turned out. It's just stunning. This game is really appropriate for family weight games. And if you don't know how this game works yet, it's one of the most interesting racing games that exists. Shut Up and Sit Down actually has a really good review of this if you want to go and watch that. But just a really brief synopsis. In Gravwell, you are trying to get out of a black hole. But of course, that black hole is constantly sucking you back in. And there's this weird gravitational pulls that's happening. So you draft cards that give you a number of spaces that you'll move. The challenge is that after you draft, each one of those cards has an initiative marker on it. And depending on which initiative you have, you're going to go before or after other people who have also drafted cards. And what's challenging is the number on your card is the number of spaces you move towards the next closest ship. So if you are close to another ship that's in front of you and you play a card that says 6, you're going to move 6 paces forward, getting you out of that black hole. But if after you have chosen and pre-planned your card, that ship moves and maybe now they screwed up and now they're behind you, well, you play your big number and suddenly you're being pulled back towards that next closest ship, but now it's behind you. So you went the way you didn't think you were going to go. Of course, there's ways in the game that you can hit the brakes. You can play some special things. You can use tractor beams. You can use repulsor beams. There's other cards you can play, but it doesn't always work out that way. And so there's lots of great surprises in this game, while also a lot of strategy. I love thinking, trying to make the best that you can of the cards that you have, while trying to figure out, how do I really move forward and get out of this black hole? Super interesting, unique gameplay, and just absolutely beautiful art. I can't tell you enough good things about this one. So that's Gravwell, something from our past. And now I want to tell you about something from our future. This is a game that we have not shown a whole lot about yet, but we're really, really excited for. And it's not just one game, it's actually a whole line of games. If you love solving mysteries, if you love cooperative games, if you like possibly inviting people over and having a little dinner party, getting dressed up, you could do that with this game if you wanted to, but you don't have to. So this line of games is called Crimes and Capers. And the idea of these is that it's a whole mystery escape room kind of a game in just one self-contained box. And the two designers of this game, Ariel and Juliana, are both actual legitimate escape room designers, and they love making great puzzles. So what's fun about these games is that they're a whole conglomeration of little mini puzzles, but each person sitting around the table has different clues that you will need to be able to solve that puzzle. So unlike some other mystery escape room type games, this one requires everybody to actually participate. So if I'm not great at puzzles, but say my best friend is really great at puzzles, sometimes you might have that one person sort of take over the game and just do it for everybody. That can't happen in this one. You legitimately need every single person to cooperate and every person to be investigating the information that their character has and then presenting that to everyone as their character and helping each other solve the puzzles and solve the mystery. The other cool thing is that each person starts out with their little journal. They have all their clues in there. They can read what they want to each other. They can explain their personalities. They can, like I said, you could dress up if you really wanted to even. And then once you've solved the puzzles that you initially start out with, those will give you a code that you actually put into a physical combination lock that is closing a box that's inside this box that has other clues in it. And so you only solved half of the puzzle at this point. You put in the combination, you open up that box, and then you have a whole other set of puzzles to solve to get through to find the actual answer to the story's question. So the first two that we're putting out in Crimes and Capers is the Lady Leona's Last Wishes. So this is a lady who loved puzzles. She had a huge family, and she really wanted everybody to solve some little mysteries before they got what they deserved out of her will. And so you, as people who have been notified as part of her will, all come together, work towards solving those puzzles. In high school hijinks, you are a group of high school students who are trying to figure out why your friend got kicked out of school. And you have to talk to each other about what you heard in different classes. You have to find out if uh, somebody stole somebody else's mystical cards, and you have to figure out if they were in the right place at the right time to be able to do something else with them that you know is related. And once you figured out those puzzles, you open up your friend's locker using her combination key and find more clues, more data inside her locker. And all of this is contained in a really nice little box. And these are going to be reasonable price point. We're estimating $30 right now, but that's not quite finalized. So again, these are coming out in July. And the one main thing I will tell you about these is that if you like solving puzzles, but you found other ones to be a little too frustrating, or maybe that everyone isn't necessarily involved when they sit down at the table, that will not be this one. The puzzles are satisfying, but they're reasonable to get through. You will solve this puzzle if you're all working together. There are enough clues, there's enough different ways to get there that it's really enjoyable and satisfying. And if you want to play it remotely, we're also including codes that you can use to play this on Skype or Zoom or however you want to video conference. Most of the playtesting for these actually happened during the pandemic over video conferencing services. So if you want to be able to continue playing with all of the wonderful folks that you've been playing games with over the last year, but you want to play it just with a video conference thing, we are including everything you need to be able to do that. So except for your own printer, you'll need to print the stuff out yourself if you want to do it that way, but we'll make sure it's pretty easy. So those are Crimes and Capers. Those are just the first two. We have more planned, and we're really excited to be able to put these on shelves in July. So check those out. The next game I want to share with you is a little bit wilder. So if you've had too many Zoom calls lately and you feel like work is piling up on your plate and you are just done with your boss who acts like a pig, or maybe is even a pig, this is the game for you. Aggretsuko is based on an awesome Netflix TV show that is owned by Sanrio. If that name is familiar to you, it's probably because they also own Hello Kitty, Gudetama, which we also make a game for. And Aggretsuko is this very relatable character. He's a red panda who actually is very frustrated at work. She works as hard as she can, but at the end of the day, she just gets kind of mad and angry, and to release that pressure, she goes to a karaoke bar, and she goes there and just rages. So this is a little quick card game. It's a card fluffing game, and it's super fast paced. You're trying to complete all your tasks, get rid of all your cards, or else you have to work overtime. Nobody wants that. So check this out when it comes out in April. All right. Our next game is another licensed game from the Power Rangers universe. And we've already done a pre-order campaign for this, but we have it actually coming out in retail stores here in April. And if you aren't super aware of Power Rangers, you're still going to love this as just a really great deck building game by Matt Hyra. But if you love Power Rangers, you're going to get even more into this. You actually get to play as either the Rangers or as the villains in a heads up deck building battle. And we have more games in this line coming out soon. This one is only $45. It's coming out in April and is one of many card games that we have coming out in April that are part of a huge line. The next one we also ran on Kickstarter not too long ago is based in the world of darkness. Vampire the Masquerade is a really rich, beautiful world, and Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game allows you to pick one of the 4 different clans in the box and play it against up to 3 other players. So this is a 2 to 4 player game, and the box actually includes all 4 of those clans plus other cards that you can use to customize your decks, which is really important because we are going to be doing a ton of cool stuff with this game that will make you want to be really competitive with it. We're going to be giving out lots of prizes. Right now, we're actually doing an online league for this. So anyone who plays in that, if you end up undefeated, we have really fancy wooden and leather deck boxes we're giving away to the top players. So this is a game that is just barely starting right now. If you want to get in at the very beginning of an expandable card game, this is where to start. You don't have to be behind it all. This is releasing in April, and we are just about to start taking pre-orders for the first expansion. If you love the World of Darkness, but you want to play as maybe one of the other clans, we start out with those 4 clans in the base deck, and then we're adding 2 more clans with this first expansion, and we'll be adding even more with future expansions coming out very soon as well. So this has those 2 base decks in it, as well as additional cards for all of the other decks in the base game as well. And we'll have a release promo for this as soon as we open up the pre-orders for this too. So you don't want to miss out on that. It's coming out in June. And those release promos, I don't believe we shared these with anyone yet. Maybe we have. These are going to be the release promos for that next expansion. So it should be super fun. We are excited to be able to make fancy card stuff. We are all from organized play backgrounds here at Renegade, and we love making little extras to give away to our fans. And we really, really can't wait to get to Gen Con and host huge events like our Prince of the City event, which is part of our extensive organized play program that we recently announced for Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game. And so we will be sharing some more details with you on that. But we did already post a pretty big article about this and an interview with Matt Holland, who is heading up our organized play for this game. So we have a pretty good timeline breakdown, starting out with just this league that we're running right now. We also have casual kits that we're sending to retail stores, and that's all happening right now, even before the game comes out. But as soon as the game is out and we can start actually playing it with people, whether that's just at your kitchen table while you're still in your bubble, or whether you're comfortable going to a local store, we're going to have lots of fun stuff as things open back up. Go check out all of the finer details about this at vampirerivals.com, and make sure you look for the Season 1 organized play kits that will be available to retailers very soon. Once the game comes out, we'll start making sure that they have playmats, promo cards, all sorts of things available to you as players. That'll be really exciting to use those better cards, build up your deck, make sure you're ready, and then go and play in some fun competitive events. So we're looking forward to that. That's it for organized play and for games, for new games. But we also have a good line of puzzles coming out. I have a huge amount of slides for puzzles that I can't share with you yet, but I can share you this one. So get ready for this one. Weird Science, or these comics from a long time ago that were pretty controversial at the time. When they came out, they actually sparked so much excitement and potential fear from adults and from very conservative people who thought maybe that these were going to twist the minds of young readers, that there was even a court battle about them. Of course, we all know that that's something that is still going on even today with video games, being concerned about whether or not they're tricking young people into doing weird things. But this is kind of where it started. So historically, it's really interesting, and they did win the court case. So hooray, we get to still have these wonderful old school comics. And the stories that they told in these are really fascinating and fun. And it's neat to be able to share these with you as beautiful puzzles, high quality pieces, really good connections. Like if you're a puzzle connoisseur, I do a lot of puzzles, pretty much all the time I have a puzzle set up. And I really, really enjoyed putting these together, because when a piece fits together, you know that it goes together, and it's very satisfying. So there you go. We have more puzzles coming out soon. These are all 1,000-piece puzzles and $20 each. Few more quick things before I run out of time. We have lots of role-playing games coming out, like a lot of role-playing games. So I can't tell you about all of them, but we did announce that we are now the publisher for the World of Darkness. So we have Vampire the Masquerade RPGs coming out in just a few months. So this is coming out in July. These are reprints. If you already have these books, that's awesome. We're not redoing anything big. They're the same, but we're allowing more people access to them. And we do have a ton of new content for these coming out very soon. Also, we recently announced that we have a partnership with the wonderful company Roll20. They're going to be doing tons and tons of stuff for us. But we already have Wordlings up, which is an awesome RPG. If you haven't been aware of it yet, go check it out on Roll20. Drag and drop support, lots of monsters, exclusive maps, everything you could hope for. I'm going to go through The next few things really, really fast because I'm running out of time. But we do have a bunch of games that are just back in stock right now that you may have missed or been having a hard time finding. We just had these land in our warehouse, so I wanted to just touch on them really quickly. First one's Arboretum, quick little card game. Go watch the Shut Up and Sit Down review because it's hilarious and you'll enjoy it. Next little card game is Gudetama. If you are into the lazy egg, if you don't want to get out of bed in the morning, I'm sure you'll relate to this one. Very, very cute little adorable egg. And then Raiders of the North Sea Collector's Box. This was a big Gen Con release for us last year, and this includes beautiful sleeves to cover all of your Raiders of the North Sea game and expansions, and it's only $30. And if you love Raiders of the North Sea, you probably also like Raiders of Scythia, which also just came back in stock after immediately selling out at our Gen Con release. And what I would argue is our biggest game of 2020, Planet X. The Search for Planet X is a wonderful deduction game that is sort of back in stock. We actually got back in stock, immediately sold out. We have more coming in April again, but we were able to cover all of our pre-orders and we'll do so again in April. So if you're looking for this one, we have more coming back in. Don't pay crazy prices. I know it's nuts out there on Amazon sometimes, so buy it at our store and it'll be reasonable, or wait for it to come back in stock in April. Thank you again. Ran out of time, but if you have any questions, go check us out on Discord, and you can always find out more about us on renegadegames.com. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your evening.